Hello, and welcome to Trekkie and Beyond, a Star Trek podcast. I'm Moneca.
And I'm Andrea, and welcome to episode 8 of season 4 of Lower Decks. This episode is called Caves, and it's an episode. And it is about our lower deckers coming back together to explore a cave and doing what they do best, getting trapped. It's what they do best. So this episode is basically a montage of them being stuck in caves.
It's okay. Not amazing because it has a lot of plot armor. As you stated, it has a lot of flashbacks. So therefore, there's not a lot of suspense there. I know they're going to get out. But it's a good old teamwork episode. It shows the 4 characters working together, lower deckers, and it's all lower deckers except for Dr. Tahana, but there's no major admirals and no major risk or anything like that. So yeah, it's just a meh. What about you?
So it was not a bad episode. I will agree with Moneca. It was not the worst episode. Because as you guys know, from season 3, the worst episode was the one I think even still to this day, I have not finished, the one about Peanut Hamper and the bird people. I was just like, no, we're not going down that road. So it's not that, but it was a filler episode that I don't need to come back to. And I feel like with Lower Decks, one of the beautiful things I loved about the show is, except for maybe 1 or 2, all the filler episodes were still episodes I wanted to come back to and enjoy and watch because they were something that added to the show as a whole. And this one, if we missed a certain episode from a different season, it's okay, yeah, did it add anything to the story of the season? No, but did it add something to the show? Yes. I can't say that for this one. I can't say that this show, without this episode, would the season be any different? It wouldn't be. This episode was I have writer's block, let's throw together flashback. It's reminding of sitcom television when there's the writers are on vacation or something, and or there's something going on and they can't get the actors to shoot, so they have them shoot oh, remember that time when, and they flash back to different episodes. That's what this was like, except we never saw these scenes before. After Badgie, I was expecting something big, and I guess maybe if this was maybe if this was episode 5, if this was before Badgie, maybe I would think differently. But because of the last episode it followed, I was expecting so much more, and not this. So let's do our deeper dive into this episode, because while for me at least, it didn't really add anything to the season, we did learn stuff about each character. In each character, Boimler, Mariner, Rutherford, and Tindy all had, except for Tindy because that was not a cave honey, all had different experiences that they kept from the other. And so this is sort of showcased how they were, ever since they got promoted, they weren't doing missions together anymore. And so they all had individual missions separately, and we got to see a little snapshot of that. So out of the 4 flashbacks, Moneca, which one did you like the most?
Oh, the Rutherford. I cannot get that scene of the C-section out of my head.
I don't want to bite a shoe. What is going on? So that was not a terror hallucination.
Maybe we should start with Boimler's, though.
You can go ahead and talk about his, because his does not do anything for me. Okay. There was because the sub character was someone we've only ever seen in passing. And it was just I'm not invested in that he made a relationship with that conspiracy theorist.
I agree with you. The only reason why I think we should start there is because it introduces the Vendorians to us that we end up finding out more about at the end of this episode. But the Vendorians set up a challenge for them, for Boimler and Levy, who are stuck in a cave, and they could either bicker or work together to try to escape. Well, in this case, they decided to bicker. And then I think Levy destroyed a transporter. So then there was a bigger cave-in. They couldn't escape. And then an alien race of Vendorians discussed with them, and they had dinner together. And Levy shared all of his conspiracy theories. And somehow they were able to work their way through discussion, out of the cave and Vendorians left them out.
I'm gonna be super honest. At first, I thought they were saying Andorians, and I was just like, at the end of that, I was like, oh, those aren't okay. So they mean something else. I just kept thinking they were saying Andorians. I feel like if it was like Ransom he was with, or like anyone else, I might have cared about Boimler's story. But like Levy was maybe mentioned once or twice, like considerably throughout. Like I know he's been there since like season 1, but he's maybe had like 1 or 2 lines that I can actually remember him saying. And so it's like it doesn't seem like he was a character I cared about that like Boimler bonded with. Like
right. I think that's just it. I think they wanted someone that was completely opposite to Boimler because Boimler is more ambitious and Levy is not as ambitious and has been in the role for a long time and hasn't been able to work his way out and was puzzled by that. But Boimler kept pointing out that, look, you're stuck because you're all in all these conspiracy theories. Yes, Q exists. Yes, Worf. Like all of these things he was just trying to point out. And Levy is stuck. It's in a similar way that like Mariner is stuck. He prevents himself from moving forward.
Okay, so super interesting point you put up there. You're right. He is the opposite because like Boimler is such a straight-laced, facts-only type of guy, and Levy was like, he even had like a little slip up where do you learn all these things? When the Midorian was asking him, he's like, oh, there's a forum where we make up. Post our different conspiracy, like different theories. So yeah, like he is the opposite of Boimler. Okay. I commend 1 point to Moneca. I commend her for that one. That is a very interesting point. That is. I will say, it wasn't until my second watch that I realized how obvious it was that the Midorians were doing this. Like, even though they tell us at the end of the episode it's them, it wasn't until my second watch that I realized every time they argued was when the moss grew.
Yeah.
And it didn't grow when they weren't arguing. So I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense now. I see it. So I guess Boimler being the first one, that should have been an opening, like secret, like, hey, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. This is what's going on. Going back to Rutherford, because I think Rutherford was my favorite too, which is why I asked you, because I wanted to know if we were agreeing on that one. And Rutherford was my favorite one just because Rutherford is such a laid-back guy that I could truly, firmly believe he could have a kid and be like, oh, I didn't think it was important. It's like, dude, you like a baby came out of you. You didn't think we wanted to know this? Like, he's such a laid-back guy. We see that when he tries to get promoted, when he wanted to get promoted, how he like passed over all these promotions so he could stay with his friends, how like sort of like chill he is in a lot of things. That's like, it's definitely within his nature to be like, oh yeah, I gave birth and not even think it was a big deal. Because it's like, it wasn't my kid, it was a clone baby. Like, so I thought that was very, very interesting for his story.
Yes. So first of all, Tendi was the most shocked of everyone. And I think it's also because they have a special bond, the two of them, and platonic bond. But like, she thought that they were sharing lots of information, but in this case, Rutherford was like, oh yeah, it was just part of a mission. I just did it. I just needed to. It's out of my control.
And like also because it was between Dr. Ta'ana and him too. And he's like, wait, my mentor and my best friend? What is going on? What world did we walk into today? But it's actually very interesting to meet that woman who's like, oh, this body's over. I'm going to, give myself another one through dermal contact. I would sue everyone. Like, I'm sorry. You just touched my skin and I'm giving birth. I'm suing everyone. I was not prepared for this. What is going on?
Yeah, that was a passive way of asking for permission. That wasn't very clear about what he was getting himself into at that moment when she touched his face. Like,
I'm just going to pass by dermal contact. I will sue everyone. Like the baby that comes out of me, you're getting sued because what is this? But it's also interesting to see that Dr. Ta'ana and Rutherford sort of had they grew in somewhat of a friendship. You saw her going from like hating the baby to like having a little quick little makeshift family, which was cute. It was cute,
yeah.
But again, it came after Badgie's episode. This should have been before Badgie's episode.
And once again, this is another case in which it was opposites. We know that Rutherford is paternal because he also raised Badgie and Goodgie. So I'm seeing this running theme with Rutherford and fatherhood, but it came very natural to him. And for her, it did not. She was all about the mission, how to escape. And at first, she didn't know how to feed the baby. But over the course of the mission, she learned how to. And Rutherford also helped save the day with helping to translate from that
monster thingy.
Yeah.
We're not even trying to think like we know how to say that name. Flashback.
One quick thing.
Go, yes.
What in the world happened to the baby?
I'm assuming that the cave guide had like a village and they gave the baby back to the village. Okay. Like, I'm assuming that the cave guide didn't live alone. That is my assumption, because I wondered the same thing. So I was like, well, if the thing took them out, the cave guide had to have like a family somewhere. And maybe they just found, that is my assumption, because again, yeah, where'd the baby go? Because I don't think the baby came back onto the ship, because I think that what everyone would have found out. So my assumption is that the baby went back to the cave guy's like family, and the grandmother probably like, I just did this. So that is my assumption.
Okay, because that's a whole other thing. If Rutherford had to raise a child, of course, Boimler would know because they're roommates. Yeah. But then also, I'm hoping they didn't leave the child with the monster. So that was a little weird. My mind just was going into lots of different directions.
Yeah, I wondered that too.
Spinoff just for that.
I wondered that one too. I was just like, So going to Mariner's story, she had one that was sort of, in my opinion, best one, the second to best one. But in the sense of, it was someone, like, we see Dr. Ta'ana a lot throughout Lower Decks. But this one was with people we have seen a couple times. There was a whole episode where they were racing against the Delta ship. They are like opposites of the Lower Deckers. So like you had the engineer who had the patch over his eye, which was like their Rutherford. You had the young kid who was like their Boimler. And then you had the woman who I can't remember her name. I can't remember any of their names actually. Was like Mariner's opposite. And so it was like they all had their opposites and how they all acted to each other. And so it was interesting to see Mariner go up against someone who was somewhat like her, but also like how they both were like just telling this kid that, oh yeah, your leg's healing fine. It's okay. Keep coming. Like it fell off. And I think I enjoyed that so much more than I should have. Like I'm a little worried how much that part of the episode made me like laugh.
I did miss though a version of Tendi.
Yeah. But I don't think we've ever seen a version of Tendi with Delta Shift.
Right, there should be someone on that shift that's a medical assistant, that could make a splint for this boy.
Wait, no, I think there is one, because I think when they were going against Delta Shift for the room, he was with two girls.
I guess just not on this mission.
Not on this mission,
right? I think that was a missed opportunity there, but then they would have made the splint, and so maybe it wouldn't have been as dramatic.
Yeah, of him losing his leg. It's like, you know what? I'm tired of being... And it was such a Mariner episode, and he's like, no, grab my legs. Like, no, actually, I'm tired of being old, so we're just going to pull you out. It's like, it would have taken 2 seconds to grab his leg to bring it with you. Like, why did you not grab his leg?
I have to admit, I like the scene where it showed the two characters, Mariner and the Delta version of Mariner, like older.
Yeah.
And their hair changed, their skin started to sag, and also the other things were sagging as well.
They shrunk. They went from standing tall to shrinking.
Yes. And how uncomfortable also they were with thinking about the challenges with aging.
Yes. Because like for them, it happened within like a minute. And so like they're like, for us, like we get older and we get used to our bodies, like getting older. And so like we gradually like, oh, we can't stand up that way anymore. Like, oh, we can't do that anymore. Like, oh, what's going on? You turn 30 and everything goes downhill. So, but like for them, they just sort of went downhill so quickly. And then we come down to the last one, Tendy's flashback, which in Mariner's defense was not a cave. Like, it was not a cave story. And if they were all telling their cave stories to get out of a cave, why would you keep trying to tell the turbolift story? I didn't get that part.
I do not like Mariner's character, and I think this is all Mariner's fault. I think they could have left earlier if Mariner allowed her friend Tendy to share this story and show how they all bond. Right? Yeah. That's basically the mission at hand. And then the moss thing wouldn't have grown.
But they didn't know that it was their fighting that was causing the moss to grow.
But if you're a friend, a good coworker, don't continuously interrupt. Even if you've heard the story a dozen times, you allow your friend to share it again.
I have to disagree because there's a time and a place. And it was not a cave story. And even when Tendy told the story about how like it goes back to the first episode of Lower Decks and them being trapped on the turbolift and how they got off, how they escaped and they played games and like whatever. That is not how you escape a cave. That none of that helped escape a like if it wasn't for like this sentient moss and the Vendorians like doing another morality test, it wouldn't matter because you didn't do anything in the turbolift to escape. Like Boimler's and Rutherford's and Mariner's story all had aspects that were like relevant to escaping for the mission they thought they were in. Not like for the overall, not from like outside looking in, but like in the middle of it. Okay, the issue is we need to contact Starfleet. This is how does anyone have any ways of this happening? Boimler's story went into it. Rutherford's story had a piece of how it helped, and as well as Mariner's story had a piece of how it helped. Tendy's story was not relevant to their current situation because they did nothing in the turbolift but play games, like sleep off a hangover. So it was like, I get, like, if this was like them just like randomly talking, then yes, Mariner, let Tendy tell the story. But her story had nothing to do with their current predicament. It really didn't. Outside looking in, it did. But like when you're in the middle of it, it did not.
It's the ultimate. So the other three characters were really talking about the technology that they were using and how the science that they used to help escape. In this case, Tendy was showing the teamwork. Without the teamwork, they wouldn't have been able
to. Teamwork? They were drunk in a turbolift. They didn't do anything in the turbolift but play drunken games and go to sleep.
And bond.
Yeah, but bonding doesn't get you, like, there was nothing in, I have to say, there was nothing in Tendy's story except for making them remember that they're friends that added to the cave. Like, if this was an actual cave issue, Tendy's story didn't do anything. Like, it just, yay, cool, we're friends. Are we going to die here as friends? Because we still need to get out the cave.
To me, it was reminding them that they have been friends for such a long time. Yes. And even though everyone seemed to have concerns about the fact that they were making connections with other people outside their clique, that still their four core people are still united from back then and still today. And so they could go out and they can have side missions with other people, but they still have, a special bond between them all.
Yes.
And in the end, that worked for them.
In this scenario, because it was a morality test. So I'm not negating what you are saying. I'm saying it did not matter. Like, I agree that the story did help them come back and remember that they were friends. And because it was a morality test, that's how they solved it. But if they were truly trapped by man eating moss, that story was like, okay, we're friends again and we're going to die as friends. Like, it didn't add anything that would have helped them escape. That is what I'm saying. Like, I get the story I get why the story was told, and I get that it was to bring everyone back as friends and to like let them remember why they love each other and bond. But like every other story had like a piece of knowledge of how they were escaping, except hers. That is what I'm saying. Like, I get it. Like, I get why she didn't want to hear the story. Like, it didn't help at this moment.
I'm trying to tie in the connections between the flashbacks. When Bloimer gave up his pants without any questions asked.
Yes.
You do that for a friend, for someone you trust. Yes, he could have given up his shirt, could have been something else.
That would have been
but
smarter.
No questions asked for this person that he has complete trust in. And so there was I felt as though there was lots of tidbits between the flashbacks that were tied in.
Yes, no, I completely agree. That story would have made more sense back on the Cerritos, though. Like after everything was over, like can we tell the story of when they met themselves in a cave and maybe that top? Like, I get what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying. I'm saying time and a place, honey. Like if our car is sinking and we're like, how do we get out of this car? And then like everyone's giving advice. It's like, well, we're all good friends. That does not get us out of this car. That is what I am very happy that we are all friends. I am very happy that we all love each other and all of this stuff. But how are we getting out? So that's what I'm saying. Like, I get it. I do. I promise. But would it be Trekkie and Beyond if Moneca and I did not do this? Would it be Trekkie and Beyond if she and I did not go back and forth? Because remember, she has the heart. I'm dead inside. So, going on to the end of the episode, as I mentioned earlier, it was the Vendorians who were doing another morality test, and they passed inadvertently. I will say I would have preferred to see the story of them meeting themselves from the future aliens stuff. I just would have preferred that so much more. But they got out. They were able to escape. But again, I feel like this episode should have been before Badgie, because that episode it gave us so many clues of like this episode, this season long story, that to sort of just go from I'm expecting this next episode to be like bam, 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 bam. And it's like, this is why I'm not happy with this episode. It's like, even though I did enjoy it and it was like funny, but it's like I don't think it should not have come after Badgie's episode.
Yeah, this is puzzling to me because also this episode did not mention our ongoing challenge for the season with the disappearing ships. Unless it's the Vendorians, which shouldn't be because they're stuck in a cave. I don't understand it. Like, things aren't always the way it seems. Is that the underlying story here? Mm-hmm. But I don't understand the connection here. And this episode also could take place in any season.
Honestly, it technically could have worked in season 3. Like, so it just didn't work for where it was. Because for me it was a letdown to go from Badgie's peanut hamper and the killer thingy to this was like, what? I was expecting, let's go, let's fight them, let's bam, bam, bam. None of that.
Right. It's almost like an opposite of an AI episode, because in this case, they had to use they had to think out of the box, the cave boxes, and think about what resources they had on hand to solve the problem without bots and other advanced technologies. And so, like you, I'm puzzled. It was just a cool snippet of small stories. It was basically 4 episodes in one.
That's what it felt like. That's what they
were 4 mini episodes.
Yes. Well, we have 2 more episodes in this season, and then we will hopefully learn what is going on. Because we don't know yet.
And we need closure.
Any final thoughts before we sign off?
I'm looking forward to that closure.
Me too. So as always, I'm Andrea.
And I'm Moneca.
And live long and prosper.